I retired from most of my positions, except for only one. And I like to be called Mitch because I hate to be called Mitchell. I was called Mitchell by my mother, my father, and my wife. She's around there somewhere. Whenever they didn't like what I did or said, which was a frequent thing, my father would call me by my sister's name and the 4 dogs first. So I appreciate that. How many of you are born Delawareans? And with perfect, I would never even use an outline or notes. But as I get older, I realize I'm better than most people, but I'm no longer perfect. So what I'm going to do, which I've been asked to do for a while now, is to give some understanding on how Delaware government works, and the second part of how Delaware politics, meaning the Democratic Party, works. So you understand the strange terms that we have in Delaware that we don't have anywhere else, and also some of the same strange procedures. So the depth I go into was based on how many people are new, because I want you to know who is who, but also who they were. But I will be brief because I know the following things. If you speak before lunch, people are hungry and want to eat, and I'm speaking before lunch. If you speak after lunch, people are full and want to sleep. I'm speaking after lunch, but I hope to keep that part shorter. And the other thing I will tell you, one thing that I did want in my introduction, but she's not perfect either anymore. I currently teach graduate school at Delaware State University. I teach public administration and governance. So that gives me some credentials. But what's important is that I tell my students at least once a week, because they have to submit things in writing and tests and all these other stuff. Proof. Make sure the grammar is correct. Make sure there's no typos. Have your friend read it backwards. And I didn't follow my own rule. So I looked at this last night, and there's typos, and I was told to challenge you to find them. So, not now, but as we go through the outline, there's at least 2 typos, and there's one error, the error I'm going to point out. So, Delaware elected state offices. The top elective state office is governor. The governor is John Carney. He is finishing his 2nd term. He is term limited. His term will end in 2 years. Before he was governor, John Carney was Secretary of Finance under then Governor Tom Carper. He became lieutenant governor under Governor Ruth Ann Minner. When his governorship was up, when his lieutenant governorship was up, he ran for governor in 2008 and lost the primary to Jack Markell, who became the governor. 2 years later, there was a switching in the congressional representation. He ran for the U.S. House and won, and stayed in that position until 6 years ago when he became governor. So that's who he is, and that's how he became. The lieutenant governor is Bethany Long. Delaware, like some states, but not most, the governor and lieutenant governor are elected separately. As a matter of fact, for those of you who have been here and raised here, at one point we had a Republican governor, Mike Castle, who had a Democratic lieutenant governor, S.G. Wu, who served 1 term. So Bethany Long is from Middletown. John Carney is from practically Pennsylvania. Bethany Long is from Middletown. She was a state representative. Then she became a state senator. And then she became lieutenant governor 6 years ago. Her term is up in 2 years. And she is all but announced to be running for governor. And if you ever met her, she's been here. She's a very personable person and a very nice person. And one of those people who will just text you just to say how you're doing, and will actually know you in the room and not look around and see who else you should be talking to. The insurance commissioner is Trinidad Navarro. Trini was a Newcastle County police officer. He became spokesperson for the Newcastle County Police on TV all the time, got elected sheriff, and then ran for and was elected insurance commissioner. The governor, the lieutenant governor, and the insurance commissioner are elected at the same time, and they serve 4 years. The Attorney General, Kathleen Jennings, she was a Chief Deputy Attorney General. She is up for election this year, and there's no term limits. Only the governor and lieutenant governor have term limits. The auditor account is Kathy McGinnis, who you know lost the primary last Tuesday, so she will be out of office in January. and Lydia York won the nomination. They all have 4-year terms. Only the governor and lieutenant governor have a term limit. Federal officers are U.S. Senate, Tom Carper. A lot of people say, oh, he's been around forever, he's so damn moderate. But let me tell you about his, quote, moderation. He came out of nowhere after he retired from the Navy, moved to Delaware, was talked into running for state treasurer when he was in his 20s, at a time that the Republicans controlled every office in the state. And Newcastle County was heavily Republican. Sussex was heavily Democrat. The flip was that the heavily Republicans were moderate. They actually recognized human rights and all that stuff. And the Democrats, no offense to those of you born and raised here, the Democrats down here were by and large Dixiecrats, Southerners who were not too much in favor of anybody but themselves. There are exceptions. After he served as treasurer, having won that race, which surprised everybody, he ran for governor and won. When his term was up, the Republican congressman decided to run for governor. Was the governor being terminated, he ran for Congress. Congressman Tom Carper ran for governor, beating a well-known Republican. And in 2000, he ran for the U.S. Senate against a Republican incumbent who was very popular, Bill Roth, and he won that too. So he's been in the Senate since 2000. The other senator is Chris Coons. He also has a very strange story. He was Newcastle County Council president. The county executive was indicted by the federal government, ended up being found not guilty except for a misdemeanor he pled to in a day when misdemeanors didn't seem to matter. That has changed, obviously. And so Chris became a county executive when Gordon was removed from office. And then in 2010, Mike Castle was asked to run for the U.S. Senate because the seat that had been vacated by Joe Biden was now up. Republicans felt the only way they could keep it was to run someone like Castle. He ran. Democrats couldn't find anybody to run for it. They asked Joe Biden, they asked all sorts of great people, and they all said no because they're not going to beat Mike Castle. And when people think you can't win because you can't raise the money. Well, a strange thing happened to Mike Castle. He lost the Republican primary to that crazy woman who said she's not a witch. And the crazy woman who's not a witch lost to Chris Coons by a landslide, except for in Sussex County, which he carried by 17,000 votes. So Chris was elected in 10, he was reelected in 14, and then in 20, he'll be up again in 26. U.S. senators serve 6-year terms. We have one congressperson, and that person you all know probably is Lisa Blunt Rochester. And she served as Secretary of Labor and Chief of Staff under governors. Then she went off to China with her husband, who was an executive for a company there. He unfortunately, sadly died from a blood clot. And she came back here, and she was persuaded to run for Congress when Carney decided to run for governor. And she won a 4-person primary. So her term is 2 years, and there are no term limits. The governor nominates people to our courts, and the governor also nominates people to those boards and commissions that are paid. In order to be confirmed, the Senate, just like the U.S., the Senate must vote to confirm by a majority vote. The State House. There are 21 members of the Senate. There are 41 members of the House. And that'll tell you why 2 representative districts don't equal 1 Senate district, because you need a little bit more than that. The State House has 41 members. 9 districts are from Sussex County. That will be 10 in the November election with the 4th district. Why does that happen? Because every 10 years, the U.S. Census is done, and the state is required to reapportion. So as populations grow down in Kent and mostly Sussex, and don't grow enough in Newcastle, districts from Newcastle County will be moved down. So that happened again this year. The districts in Sussex were districts 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 41. But 20 years ago, District 14 was moved down here from Newcastle. That's Rehoboth. That's Beech Worskov. 10 years ago, District 20 was moved down from Newcastle. That's the Milton Lewis area, currently represented by Steve Smick, who's a Republican candidate for the state Senate. And this year, District 4 was moved down from outside of Newark to Long Neck area, and that's an open seat, obviously. So that's how that works. Of the 9 members from Sussex County, 8 are Republicans. The only Democrat is Pete Schwarzkopf, who also is the Speaker of the House, and he represents Rehoboth, Dewey, the areas outside of Lewis. He is up for re-election, and there is an opponent there. That's the party breakdown. The districts average about 25,000 people. The Senate districts average around 41,000 people. Not everybody's registered. Sussex County, Eastern Shore area, where we are, has a hell of a lot more people registered than anywhere else in the state because we have older people living down here. There aren't as many young people. We have older people who move here and register, and therefore our numbers are much higher. As a matter of fact, last Tuesday, the 6th Senate District primary had the largest turnout of anywhere in the state. 1,600 people voted by absentee or by mail or early voting, and the next highest district was the 1st in Wilmington, which had 600. So it's very lopsided here, so it's a lot more work. 21 votes are needed to pass a bill. That's a majority of 41. You need 21 yes votes. There have been votes with 19 yes votes, and everybody else goes no voting, not voting. You need 21 yes votes. There's no tiebreaker. So if you don't get 21, even if you only have 20 people voting, 41, it's dead. You need, again, 60% to pass revenue bills, and you need 2/3 to pass constitutional amendments. The Democrats do not have 2/3 of the state house. They are 2 votes short. There are a number of Republicans, maybe 2, maybe 3, who are relatively moderate, but are unfortunately unable to resist pressure. 2 years ago, there was a constitutional amendment, which had passed the Senate and in the House, to allow no excuse absentee voting. Now you understand why that lawsuit was filed by Republicans. It was doing the same thing. They had 2 Republicans signed on to it, Mike Smith and Michael Ramone. When the Republican caucus met, I don't know what they did, but I will tell you that one of those representatives, Mike Ramone, when he said he was supporting gay rights, was locked in a closet by the Republicans and had his windshield smashed out. So I don't know what they said here, but those 2 pulled themselves off the bill. So there wasn't a majority, 2/3, and that's why they said, let's try passing a bill and let's see what happens in the court. Again, constitutional amendments must be passed 2 sessions in a row. The current breakdown is 25-16. They are elected for 2-year terms. Senators are elected for 4-year terms, except after a census. After the census, every single Senate seat is up. Every single Senate seat is up this year. Some people are elected for 4-year terms, others are elected for 2-year terms, and will have to come up again. How do they figure that out? Those people elected in 2018 will now be up for 4 years, and those 2 years, and those that are elected just in 20 will now get 4-year terms, and then it sounds crazy. But that's what they do, and that's why they're all up now. Judicial branch. Unlike any other state that I can find, and I'm not an expert in all 50 states, only 49, I haven't figured out Louisiana yet, all judges in Delaware must be equal politically. Our Constitution requires one person from one political party and one person from the other political party where possible. Someone took that to the state Supreme Court and the federal courts 2 years ago, saying that's not fair to the 25% of Delawareans who are not registered to either party. And the court said, too bad, I don't understand that. So when the governor makes an appointment, it's a Republican seat being vacated. He, she maybe one day, will appoint a Republican, If it's a Democratic seat, it'll appoint a Democrat. That looks fair politically, but here's what we see in a state where the Democrats control almost everything. Republican lawyers switch parties and then try to get appointed. By and large, it works. Our highest court is the state Supreme Court. You know what Supreme Court does. The next court is the Court of Chancery, which is a court of equity. Mostly deals with matters at which there is no remedy at law, or handles matters relative to corporate. Majority of Fortune 500 corporations are registered here in Delaware, and there's two reasons for it. Corporate taxes are lower here, but secondly, because our Court of Chancery, which has been around for 200 years, is highly respected, and therefore they know they're going to get a fair hearing and a fair decision. It's a very important court. In some ways, it's more important than the Supreme Court. Below that, we have a superior court, which is the trial court for most large civil cases and criminal cases. There is a court of common pleas, which is kind of a mixture between what other states would have as a JP court and a trial court. They handle smaller matters. We have justices of the peace, where we all used to have wherever we came from. They are non-lawyers in most cases, all appointed by the governor, and even more ridiculous to me, some towns, especially down this way, have aldermen. The aldermen are appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate on the recommendation of those town mayors, and they handle parking matters, disturbances of the peace, those types of small things, and rake in revenue for those towns. Laurel has an alderman, Dewey Beach has an alderman, Rehoboth Beach has an alderman, so Newark has one upstate. Those people serve 10-year terms and can be reappointed. County government. Newcastle County has its own structure, county council elected by district. Kent County has a levy court commissioner system. They all used to have levy courts. There isn't much difference. They're elected by district and some at large. Sussex County has a county council system where they are elected by district, and it's gerrymandered so that no Democrat can win. The new districts may change that, and they are going into effect now. So it is now possible, and the Republicans have had some pretty bad primaries. They are elected for 4-year terms. The members of the council appoint members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which handle all those development issues. Each member of council gets to appoint the person that he or she chooses. There has been talk about changing that, enlarging it, but it takes the legislature. The counties and the municipalities operate under what's called a charter. The charters are granted by the legislature. Only the legislature can amend the charters. And the habit in Delaware, we have a lot of things called Delaware Way. The habit in Delaware is to only amend the charter when that municipality asks us to, which has been a real problem. And I used to do work for the Legal and Voters, because a lot of our small municipalities, especially here in Sussex County, have separate registration for their town elections. And people move here and figure they can register to vote at the DMV, I can now vote, and they go to vote in the local election. Oh no, you have to come to City Hall between Monday and Friday, between 9 and 5, and register here. Well, a lot of people don't, a lot of people can't, and some people are afraid to go to City Hall, people who are minorities. So there has been an attempt to change it, there have been bills, but it's being resisted all along. I'll give you a stupid example, and I'm about to stop, because after lunch we're talking about the political system. Lewis, Delaware, this has just been changed. Lewis, Delaware, a progressive town. They elect their town council people in a separate election. They also elect their Board of Public Works. In order to vote in the town council election, you must go to City Hall and register to vote. If you want to vote in the Board of Public Works election, you have to go to the Board of Public Works and register there. The elections are held the same day, but you have to go to 2 different places to vote. The purpose of it is to keep many people from voting, and it works very well. Rule of politics, the smaller your voting numbers are, the better chance you have. Yes?
Just because I'm a super newbie that registered registered at a DMV, do I have to register in Ocean View?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because I did not know that.
Same for
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, more than likely, I had the list, but I don't remember all of them. More than likely, yes. There is a bill, it'll come back up in January to say that if you registered with the DMV, you're on the town's list. They can also do it their own. The reason they do it, other than to suppress the vote, is because people who own property but don't live there are allowed to vote in a lot of these things. Municipal elections in Delaware are nonpartisan with the exception of Wilmington. So they run with no party label. Those elections are separately scheduled, not along with the general election, and very few people vote, and the same with school board elections. In Delaware, in order to vote in a school district election, you don't have to be registered at all. You just have to show up and show proof of residency. That's fantastic, but nobody votes. They're held at inconvenient times, they're not well publicized, and they're also nonpartisan. So I will stop so we can all eat, and we'll start again after lunch. Thank you.